You're joking, aren't you? It's the Teesside Chef. A threesome of Flammkuchen or Tarte Flambée, if you like, and this is great if you're sick of pizza, if you're a bit lazy, or if you just like threesomes, because this dough doesn't need any yeast, any rising time, or any complicated rules or safe words, because it's just 600 grams of bread flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, a teaspoon of sugar, 300 millilitres of warm water, and 60 grams of a liquid oil, and that's about 6 tablespoons. And then just simply bring the dough roughly together with a spoon before digging in with your fists and bringing it together properly. Now I'm using bread flour here because that gives the best thin, crispy base results, which is what you're looking for with Flammkuchen or Tarte Flambée, but you can use all-purpose or plain flour for this. But you will have to knead the dough until it's smooth for around 5 to 10 minutes. The dough is quite a dry dough to ensure that we get that dry, crispy base, so it's very easy to manage. And now we've shaped it into a nice smooth ball. We just need to cover it in cling film and let it rest for around 20 minutes or so. And we can use that waiting time to really well preheat our oven at full blast maximum heat, and I'm placing a baking tray at the bottom of the oven to get really hot as well, which I've turned upside down, and that's a little tip for you to get the very best, crispiest base. And the topping is very simple with some crème fraiche, just a pinch of salt, and a generous dusting of pepper, along with a pinch of nutmeg, and our other toppings are going to be quite salty, so just a pinch of salt will be enough. And after a good stir, that's done. Onion next. And I have red onion here, which I'm slicing very thinly, and you can see there just how thin this onion should be. And you can just put these onions straight on your Flammkuchen, but I'm going to add a pinch of salt to them and then let them sit in that salt for a good 10 minutes to draw out the moisture and soften and wilt the onions down. And that will give an authentic and altogether more pleasant texture, I think, to the final Flammkuchen, Tarte Flambée. And I also have these smoked bacon lardons, which I've also cut very thinly, as you can see. They're going to go on the very top. And if you cut them thinly like this, they will cook better, so it's definitely worth going to the extra trouble of slicing them thinly if you can't buy them this thin. And now the onions have sat for 10 minutes, I can give them a good squeeze, and you can see how much moisture is coming out of them there, dripping like a bust pipe they are. And the dough is now ready to rock and roll, literally. I have enough dough here to make 4 large Flammkuchen, and that's enough to feed 4 hungry appetites if you're just having a foursome. Or 8 people for good snackability if you're having a proper orgy, which makes this a great food for a naughty party or any other kind of less exhilarating party. Hey, it's up to you what you do in your free time, isn't it? I cut the dough into 4 pieces, so I'll take a piece, flour a sheet of baking paper really well, and the dough of course, and roll out, and you'll be able to roll this out almost as big as the baking paper, and this baking paper is 38 by 42 centimetres, so that will tell you how big you can make these. And you should be rolling it out into a large oblong shape. And the dough has to be kept moving as you roll, so you'll need plenty of flour to help you, and flip the dough if you like to make sure it's not sticking to your baking paper. And just roll it a couple of millimetres thick like this. And now we can get on with the toppings. Each one of these will need around 125 to 150 grams of the seasoned crème fraiche mix, depending on how big you've rolled the dough. And you don't want to spread it too thick, but you want to know it's there, so I'll leave it up to you to decide on your preferred crème fraiche thickness. Just make sure that you don't overload the dough with crème fraiche, because we want to keep that base nice and crispy and dry, don't we? And here comes our softened and wilted onions, and each Flammkuchen can take roughly a medium onion's worth, I would say. And I'd also posit that around 125 grams of our thinly sliced bacon lardons are ideal, but you can put anything on these. You can even replace the crème fraiche and other toppings with the pizza sauce and pizza toppings to get a skinny pizza. But I'm keeping it traditional here with a final dusting of dried parsley, although fresh chives are often used instead. And we want to get this straight onto the hot upside down baking sheet we prepared earlier in our boiling hot oven, and you can't lift this in with your hands as it will collapse, so sliding onto another baking sheet first will mean that we can, if we're careful, slide it straight into the oven where we will bake it at the maximum temperature, in this case for me 250 Celsius or 480 Fahrenheit, for around 7 to 8 minutes. after which time it will be ever so slightly singed on top and at the edges, and if I cut it with a pizza cutter here, I'll be able to show you that it's also dry and crispy underneath, and there you go. And I'm not cheating using this end piece, because there's a piece from the middle, and that's also dry and crispy, so now you know I'm not lying. I shall present it to you in the traditional way on a large wooden board, and you could present all these Flammkuchen on wooden boards, on a table with the bowl of car keys in the middle if you're having a sex party. Do they still use the stereotypical car keys in a bowl ceremony for swapping partners at swinging parties these days? Let me know in the comments if you have any info on that. I'm just asking for a friend. So I'm doing a sweet one now. I've rolled out the dough 2mm thick. I have around 125 to 150 grams of Créme Fraiche. No salt and pepper in this, of course. I added a teaspoon of vanilla sugar instead. And after spreading that on my dough, I can go ahead and place the thinly sliced apples I prepared earlier on top. And I think it's pretty cool that you can make what is essentially a dessert alongside the main course with the same dough. And I do like to do this when I make Flammkuchen, and I serve the sweet one with a bit of ice cream at the end, I have a teaspoon of sugar and a teaspoon of cinnamon mixed together, which I'm just going to sprinkle on top of the apple generously before baking, again for 7 to 8 minutes in our boiling hot oven. After which point, I suppose it won't look that different, but it'll certainly taste different with those apples, and they'll have a nice little bite to them still. And a drizzle of maple syrup before serving is good on almost any sweet food, really, isn't it? And I made another traditional bacon and onion one there before I made a vegetarian option, and that would be a Greek-style Flammkuchen Tarte Flambée with goat's cheese, olives and onion. I have around 100 to 125 grams of soft goat's cheese, and I'm sprinkling on some chopped olives. It's up to you how many. And to keep the Greek theme going, a sprinkle of dried oregano to finish. 7 to 8 minutes in the oven, and we have our threesome complete. I can recommend that you do leave these for a few minutes before cutting into them, because they are boiling hot. And I did burn my hands here in my eagerness to get a good money shot, but I can still show you that lovely crispy base there, and you can see how that has bubbled up on the hot baking tray, and that crunch with the soft creamy toppings of my recipe threesome of Flammkuchen stroke Tarte Flambée is almost as exciting and as hot as a real menage a trois. And you lot better come back again next week for more recipes, otherwise what's the point of me doing this? See you then. Ta